Hey everyone, Temporal here. So, back when I was a kid, we could count on certain companies to pretty much without fail release a game that was going to be like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And I don't mean a game reviewer 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, where they only use like the 7 through 10 portion of the scale, so it's worthless. I mean back in the day when you could go, hey, that's a Blizzard game. It's going to be great. You can buy it on day zero. You can pre-order it. You can do whatever. And you're going to be confident that just about every game they release is going to be great. That might have applied to Blizzard. That might have applied to Square Soft. That might have applied a little bit later to a company like BioWare that we've got here on our chart. That might have applied to a couple companies. It certainly wasn't everyone, and that doesn't mean that every game was great or every game was terrible back in the day, and we certainly release way more games per year than today than we did back then. But I also think most gamers or many gamers are becoming aware that you can't just count on games to be good anymore. They've done so much to incentivize pre-order bonus, and then so many people are unhappy. They release the game that needs patches, that isn't yet complete, that sort of thing. So I want to talk about what game companies still do release good games. And that's not to say they never have a single flop. Nothing is ever bad. You know, when you're pushing the limit, when you're trying to come up with new stuff to do, trying to make your games better and better, sometimes you're going to have a little bit of a trip, but those trips aren't happening half the time or a third of the time. Those are happening like one time in 10. So who's still producing those absolute top tier games that you can still count on? And obviously, you may have your own list. Everyone should build their own short list of, hey, what game developers can I count on to go, this is a game I want to play. It's not that the ones of old anymore, so those of you who have gotten a little older like myself definitely need to recalibrate, readjust your list. But let's look at some of the modern stuff. And we have a graphic here that has some game developers on here. We can think about some of these. We talked about Activision Blizzard. And Activision Blizzard might still seem like, hey, they released good games. Overwatch was a good game. StarCraft 2 was a pretty good game. People have liked some of the recent World of Warcraft expansions, but not all of them. Some of the more recent World of Warcraft expansions have been very miss. Heroes of the Storm, they clearly view as a bit of a failure. Didn't really do it. They pulled esports support for it pretty darn quickly. They haven't really gone hard into it. They consider it a bit of a failure. They didn't expect their re-release of, or their release of WoW Classic to work. Instead, it was a huge moneymaker for them. They clearly don't really have it in their DNA to just release hit after hit after hit anymore. They still do some pretty good games. They're still going to have good games, don't get me wrong. But I don't think most people are turning to them and going, yes, I expect every single game they release to be in that 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 on a true scale level anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and strike them from the list. Another one, you know, maybe a childhood favorite for me at least, would have been Squaresoft. They're not that company anymore. I absolutely loved when they were that company. Final Fantasy VII, 10 out of 10 game. I'm going to say that. Final Fantasy VIII, maybe down at like a 8 out of 10 type category, but that's still going to be perfectly fine. 9, another great game. 10, that would be another 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 type game. They, of course, did other stuff that wasn't Final Fantasy. Square used to do some great games, but they've wandered. Final Fantasy 15 was a very average game at best. We've seen some of their other stuff just really not live up to it. 7 Remake was good. And I say that as someone who went into it very hesitant, going, no, I don't think I want this action game. I think I want my old turn-based combat. I want those sorts of things. I can't deny that for like 90% of the game, it's a good game. It goes wild in that last chapter too. Those who have played it know what I'm talking about, and I worry about the next one. But ultimately, hey, that's a good game, but a good game doesn't make for what we're counting on here. We're looking for, you can count on release after release after release from this company, even if there's only a release every 4 years, every 5 years, whatever, to be good. And again, you used to be able to do that similar sort of thing with BioWare. Obviously, they got bought up by EA, but I've pulled them out separately here because I think in the past, at a little bit of a later date than you might have seen from Square, for example, they were something that you could count on. Hey, Mass Effect is good. Dragon Age is good. But then some of the sequels started getting worse, and then after the EA acquisition, they started throwing that BioWare label on games that they didn't really even have any part in working on, that sort of thing. Okay, that deteriorated over time. That studio has clearly been picked apart. Not really something that's going to be this is great game after great game after great game. Okay, well, what else is here? I don't think Ubisoft was ever really on this list, but you know what? It's a big deal developer at this point. We should talk about it. Ubisoft, are they top tier? Can you go, hey, the next Ubisoft game is going to be good. I'm going to be comfortable putting $60 down on the next Call of Duty game, just expecting that it's going to be good? Not Call of Duty, excuse me. I'm in Activision mode right now. Am I going to be willing to put $60 down on the next Assassin's Creed game, just expecting it to be good? Well, no. I think there was a couple Assassin's Creed, like Black Flag, that were quite fun. This was fun. But they've really milked that series for quite a bit. It's got pretty, okay, this is getting long and drawn out and repetitive, and if it's the type of game for you, maybe that's okay. But I think more and more people are going, hey, that's not really going to do it. And then as they've tried to branch out and get other hits, get other IPs going, those IPs have just not had the level of success that Assassin's Creed did. So, no, those are okay games, but those would be like real 7 out of 10s. I don't mean like 7 out of 10 bad game, because again, reviewers tend to squish all of their ratings into 7, 8, 9, and 10. I don't mean that in bad game. I mean like real 6 or 7 out of 10 games, which are fine games that you might enjoy, but you aren't going to go, hey, I absolutely am thrilled with this purchase the way you should be over a 9 out of 10 game every time. So no, I don't really think they make our list. Sega, very similar case, no issue with Sega. They're going to release some fine games. They've got some great divisions that we could talk about, and actually will talk about a little bit later here, that I think could maybe make that list of, hey, they're doing good stuff almost every single time, even if it's in a genre that you or I might not particularly like. But they overall, the Sega name, I think that's a little hard to do. Like, hey, maybe you really enjoy Sonic games, maybe you really enjoy lots of other stuff that they've done, but I think they're too big of an umbrella, and that umbrella doesn't have the success that, again, we're looking for these, hey, you could count on Blizzard in the 90s or 2000s to every single game is going to be good type thing. Or Square, every single game at the end of the 90s is going to be good type thing. They don't think ever really think we're there. EA, no one ever thought EA was there. I don't even need to cross them off here. And then we get to some others. So we've got some of these left, and I'm not going to go through the rest of these. What I'm instead going to do is I'm going to go through what I've put together as what I think are the game companies that are still doing a good job. And I'm not saying you should go pre-order from them, but I'm saying I still think they potentially do a good enough job that you can look forward to their games and not expect to be disappointed. Now, they still might make games that you personally might not enjoy. I know, for example, the first one that I'm going to put up here is going to be Rockstar Games. I do not particularly enjoy Rockstar Games games. I don't. Rockstar Games, I respect that they're making good games. I respect that the Grand Theft Auto series is absolutely good stuff. I respect that Red Dead, people love that. I respect that these are good games out of the gate, and they've got that history of not many fumbles in relatively recent years, and a pretty good track record of top tier games that people who like them really like them. I'm not worried when a game is in a genre that I immediately know I'm probably not going to like that game. I can still respect that it is a 9 out of 10 type game or a 10 out of 10 type game for the type of person that's going to enjoy that genre. And that's fine, because I'm not going to get baited into buying it. That's perfectly fine. That's great, in fact. You can have your mass appeal, but what you don't want, what we're worried about, is the aim of, I can't tell if that's going to be good or not. Their games, like if we look at Grand Theft Auto, for what it's trying to do, it's excellent, and the people that are going to like it are quite a bit going to like it, and there's no confusion over, oh, hey, am I going to like this sort of game? That's okay. Like, you can do this sort of game where you're going to go around and commit a bunch of crime. Not my personal game, can be a little bit of fun, but I respect that it's still a 10 out of 10 game, and the amount of playtime it has is definitely going to respect that. And again, to be clear, I'm not worried about, how much they're making. Companies that are going to make my list, I'm only going to have about half a dozen for you, could be releasing a game once every 5 years, once every 6 years, once every 3 years. I don't care. That's going to be enough for me. I just want to know that when they release a game, I can pretty safely expect it to be good. These are this current era's Blizzards, Squaresofts, BioWares, that sort of things. The ones you can still count on to make great games. You won't be able to count on them to make great games forever, but for now, you can potentially count on. So who do we get to next? Well, next, we're actually going to go over to From Software. And From Software, we could talk about Rockstar in case people are interested. Rockstar, if you want to look at this less from a gaming standpoint and more from an investment standpoint, hey, they make good games. Maybe they're worth investing in, that sort of thing. That's not going to be worth doing, or maybe some company should go acquire them. Maybe they should be Sony's next buy. Maybe they should be Nintendo's next buy. Maybe they should be Microsoft or Amazon's next buy, or, whatever the case, or Disney's, who knows. If you want to look at that, obviously, Rockstar, they're a subsidiary. They're part of Take-Two. We could click through to Take-Two and see that Take-Two also has, let's actually take a quick look at Take-Two. Take-Two also, they're private, and they are also going to have 2K. That's the other big thing in that basket. So, okay, that's there. You're not really going to be able to get invested in them. No big deal. From Software is the next one I'm going to talk about. They're part of Kadokawa, and as we saw there, they're going to be part of Kadokawa. They're known for Armored Core. Armored Core, that's certainly a name. It's not huge anymore, but we have a history of history of Armored Core. We're going to know those games. They obviously had the more recent Elden Ring. They've had some of these things. I think most people, I don't really think I need to sell that people like From Software, right? Like, again, that's going to be a subsidiary of another company. They're not something that you could go independently grab. They're going to have other stuff that they work on. But I think if we look at, some of the Bloodborne stuff, we obviously just had Elden Ring. They would have been on this list even before Elden Ring because they've done basically everything in that era. That's going to work for people. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. If people have issue with this one, obviously throw them up in chat. I'll catch up on chat at the end. If I miss your studio that you think is making the best stuff ever, absolutely leave it in the comments down below as well there. Because, hey, everyone wants to know who they can count on. If you think I put a company up here that absolutely doesn't deserve this because they've got too many flops, let me know that down there as well. I don't know everything about every game company because while I do gaming, I know the gaming world, I don't love every genre. That's just reality. Okay. So, Monolith Soft. Monolith Soft is going to be another one. We're going to look at this one and go, hey, what is Monolith Soft? Well, Monolith Soft used to be owned by Namco, currently owned by Nintendo. What do they do? Well, what they actually did and what they're actually done independently or done themselves would be the Xenoblade and Xenogear stuff. The Xenoblade stuff, I enjoyed it. I think people that enjoy that sort of game are going to enjoy it. Some people are going to go, oh no, that's too anime-ish, or oh no, the voice acting's terrible. I think most people who aren't going to like those games are going to have a pretty easy time staying away from them, so that works out. But they don't have a huge amount that they've done here where it's all Xenoblade and Xenogear type stuff almost entirely. But that's not really it. If we look at what they've worked on, what they've been brought in to assist on, we're going to see Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Breath of the Wild. Oh, clearly they're doing pretty good work in what they work on. What else have they worked on? More Animal Crossing, more Splatoon, more Zelda, some Pikmin, Smash Bros. Oh, okay, so these guys are, doing clearly pretty good work. Their own independent stuff, they don't have a huge library of, but what they've done pretty well. People are going to like that. I think those are solid games. 9 out of 10 might be pushing it with some of their Xenoblade stuff, but that's fine. And then they've been good with the assists there. Hey, that's a pretty solid one. Again, this wouldn't be one that you could invest in if you were interested because it's Nintendo. You're not going to be able to get at them. Nintendo just owns them. But that's fine. So then we move on to Valve. And I think Valve does make the list. We look at Valve, we look at their library, what they've done. Maybe you guys think, hey, Valve is just struggling. Valve hasn't done anything great in a while. But we look at Valve, I don't know about that. I mean, obviously a lot of their stuff is going to be old, but it never really stopped being good. Team Fortress, Portal, those were great. Half-Life, Dota, Counter-Strike, like, those were great. They continue to, mostly when they release games, release pretty good games. I don't think we're looking at those and going, oh, hey, they're releasing bad games. I think we'd instead look at them and go, hey, they don't release games as often as you might like because they're too busy doing other stuff in the Steam world, that sort of thing. But that's fine. Okay, Santa Monica Studios is also fantastic. I think they should make the list. They maybe should have. I'd have to think about that one some more. I can tell you that they didn't because I've pre-prepared my list, but maybe they should have. I'd probably put that borderline. So here we're going to go ahead and move on. And like I said, we're not going to go infinite on this. We don't want to put 30 things up here. We don't want to put, a ton up here. Okay. So now we're going to move over to Atlus. I like JRPGs. Hey, that's going to make sense. This, I'm going to have a little bit of my bias. I can't remove that. But Atlus has been doing good stuff here. We've looked at them. What has Atlus done? Well, obviously, they're under the Sega umbrella. So if we go back to, that's not quite what I wanted to do. That's not quite what I wanted to do. If we go back to our Sega umbrella, fine. That makes sense. There's maybe, Sega we crossed out, but we go, hey, Atlus, gonna be more harder hitting things than Sega as a whole would have. So, okay, that makes sense. What have they had? They've had the Megami Tensei stuff. They've had Persona. Even just those two big names, you pretty much get to just count on these to be good time after time. People who liked Persona, people who like Persona 3, like Persona 4, like Persona 5. The Shin Megami Tensei stuff is that's just continued through. People have continuously liked that. You get to just expect those to be pretty darn good. Then my bias is definitely going to show. Neon Falcom, tiny little company. Don't worry about them. They're great. They did the Legend of Heroes stuff. They did the YS stuff. It's great. If you know what you want, great. I'm not actually going to pretend that they're at the tier of some of these other companies, but I am going to, stick my favorite little, hey, I love their games developer in here. So we'll just sneak that on in there. And then we're going to move on to the last one that I put here, which is Capcom. And Capcom, I'll be clear. I actually think Capcom is in a pretty good spot right now. I'm a bit invested in Capcom because I looked at them and went, hey, they're producing good game after good game. If we talk about what they're doing, yeah, they've had the Street Fighter stuff. That can work, whatever, but that's old. But the Monster Hunter stuff, the Resident Evil stuff, those are more recent. Those are just good game after good game. People have been liking the Monster Hunters. People have been liking the Resident Evil stuff, even the remake stuff there. Devil May Cry. Like, they've been doing good game after good game. They haven't really been going, oh, we have a lot of flops, that sort of thing. Could you find one or two in there? Absolutely. But over the last, 4 or 5 years, last 3 or 4 years, it looks pretty good. And I'd actually also eyeball this one as probably the one that you'd look at and go, hey, if you're looking at, we just had Activision Blizzard acquired by Microsoft. We just had Sony counter by taking Bungie, which was the nice little, yes, if Microsoft takes Activision Blizzard, let's go take Bungie in response because Bungie put Halo on the map, put Microsoft on the map. Bungie worked with Activision Blizzard and then left and then that sort of thing. Aha! Stick it to him even though it's a way smaller company. If you were looking for the next acquisition, might be this one. I'm not saying it will be. I was actually surprised. I did see a game theory video. I went and looked at it to see if I wanted to react to it. They were doing the whole, Disney is going to acquire Nintendo thing, which they won't. Disney would love to acquire Nintendo. Nintendo has so many good IPs that Disney would love to have, including access to the Pokemon IP, which Nintendo would absolutely love to have, but that's very unlikely to actually happen. But the conclusion that they reached in that one was Capcom, and I agree. Capcom was also my top, hey, this is the most likely to be next domino that falls for someone that's going to do an acquisition. And that could be a Sony, that could be a Microsoft, but that could also be more in the world of an Amazon or a Facebook, or even something more in the lines of a Google or a Disney or a Netflix, that sort of thing. Obviously, I'm not actually giving you guys investment advice. You have to make your own decisions. As I pointed out, you can't even invest in a lot of these companies because they're subsidiaries or they're privately held, that sort of thing. But I do have a little bit here. I will be honest on that one. I will be direct on that one because, hey, they're kind of an interesting one. So what do you guys think on both fronts? Both from a what great companies did I miss out on? Did I put someone on here that you think has had too many misses in recent years? I, again, don't really want to go out to like 10 or 20 companies on this list because I don't really ever actually think there's 10 or 20 companies for someone to follow. And the truth is, even though I put these companies on the list, I don't actually totally enjoy games from every single one of these companies. I don't think anyone really does. We're really trying to strain this pretty finely for stuff, but it is okay if they're doing a genre that you're not particularly a fan of. Or who do you think is the next acquisition in the game of Monopoly that's currently being played while we just decide that we're not going to enforce antitrust laws? Who's gonna scoop up who? Is it gonna be Capcom that gets scooped up? I think that is definitely one that makes sense. Could be Sega. I'd probably lean towards Capcom. Or are we looking at something else? And who's going to do it? Is Netflix going to actually make their play into the world of streaming, into the world of, no, we want to do video games as a streaming thing? Because all of the companies these days are viewing competing over your eyeballs as what they need to do. As, hey, we need to get you watching. We need you in our ecosystem, either so that we can be the only one to serve you ads, even if those ads are like a Netflix style, hey, upgrade to the next package, the 4K package, or have you in a place where you're all they're seeing and you're not even thinking about going to anything else. So you stick with them through price increases, etc. But that's really what we're looking at. Those were my thoughts. I definitely am curious in what you guys think as well. And let's do a quick catch up on what you guys have to say as well. You have to pre-order. Digital editions might sell out. No, they don't do the digital edition selling out threat. They go with the, hey, you have to pre-order because we'll give you digital pixels of a new costume or something like that you'll never be able to get if you don't pre-order it. We won't make it available in the store. The only way to get it is to pre-order it. That sort of thing. Love the remake. Final Fantasy VII? Yeah, the Final Fantasy VII remake was better than I expected, for sure. Bethesda games have punished me too much for getting them anytime near release. Yep. There's definitely some companies here that we intentionally didn't cover that have released very good games, but also mix in like, oh, okay, that, Square would be an example of them, and we intentionally didn't include them. Hey, Final Fantasy XIV, that's great MMO. There's a reason World of Warcraft lost so many people to it over time. Great MMO. Final Fantasy VII Remake, great game. But Final Fantasy 15 was not, just as an example. And they do other stuff as well. But there's too many trips in there. And so this isn't what company has created the best game overall. This is, hey, who can you sort of count on not have to wait 3 weeks, that sort of thing? Who can you go, if they're working on a game, I want to play it. Definitely worried about the next, but they did well enough for me. Yep. Elark says, for me, day one purchases are anything from the following series: Monster Hunter, so Capcom, but yeah, Doom, Dark Souls, we're back to some of the From stuff. Even if they get 1 out of 10 reviews, I'd buy it day one because I'm so invested in the series. Absolutely makes sense. But you have to be a little careful with that, because you have to be careful with that. You might be invested in the series, but you have to start evaluating, is the series continuing in a way that you care about? Like, is the series continuing in a way you care about, or did you last care about it here and you just saw the next thing? Like, you could talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Maybe you really liked it through this movie, but you just kept watching it because you kept needing to see what happened each time, and you're spending $15 a ticket to go see what happens next in the world's longest TV series that you're paying $15 an episode for, whatever the case may be there, when you really stopped caring about it 6 episodes ago. That sort of thing. And are you doing the same thing with your gaming? Black Flag was interesting as Rogue, but never Okay. I feel like a lot of devs are too big at this point for any of them to be universally day one purchases. FromSoft is one of the few big ones that just makes one series. Others have too much variation. Right, and that does help them. That definitely helps get them onto the list. They don't have a ton of variation. And you'll notice I started snooping around looking for smaller ones as well. Like, I do like Neon Falcon. You look at that and it's like, oh wait, they've really got 2 series, but those 2 series are good. Totally agree about Rockstar, not my thing, but respect them as a great dev. Exactly. Rockstar is great. They don't make a lot though. They make good games because they always take their time. It's almost like that's a thing that's going on. We saw a similar thing with Valve. When they do something, they tend to do it well, but they don't release as many games as you might expect given their size, given, their income streams from other stuff. But hey, wonder if CD Projekt Red would have been on this list before Cyberpunk? Before Cyberpunk, it would have been. It was on the version of this list that I created a while ago, but, Cyberpunk happened. I was actually a little hesitant to put them because they didn't have quite a long enough track record, truth be told, but they were borderline hanging out near the list there. I respect the way they gave a new generation a new type of escapism that broke the nerd mold. Oh, got it. The Grand Theft. Yep. World of Warcraft owned and fed that stereotype. Rockstar broke it. Sure. What do we got? Naughty Dog should make the list. Could be. Loved the game. Loved this Persona 5. Resident Evil is so good. Naughty Dog is also great. Yeah. I suspect I'm going to see some Naughty Dog comments down below, and I can see that. I think Bethesda's had... I don't know about that one. I think they've had some high highs, but I don't know that I'm quite seeing the consistency there. For anyone who likes 90s style shooter, New Blood Interactive is the king. Dusk, Ultrakill, a Medieval, great game, similar to Developer Digital in the published games made by indie devs. Okay. Disney to make 3 new Nintendo-based theme parks by Disney World 2 weeks after they buy Nintendo. I don't think Nintendo will sell to them. Like, I am sure Disney would absolutely love to have Nintendo. There's so many IPs there that they would like. They'd especially like to have Pokemon. But you look at that, hey, Pokemon they could do stuff with. They could probably find good ways to do things with some of the Mario stuff, ways to do stuff with some of the Zelda stuff, ways to do stuff with, they could use the inkers in the Splatoon stuff. They could use, so much of that stuff is, kid-friendly, works well with what Disney tries to aim at type thing. Lots of IPs that they could turn into shows that they put in Disney Plus, that they could turn into theme parks, that they could do that cross-media empire thing quite well with Nintendo. I just don't think Nintendo and Disney will play nice. I don't think that's happening. Kojima Production, another one to consider for the list. Maybe Konami. Castlevania, Silent Hill, Zone of the Enders is a great lineup to have. Sure, if we're talking acquisition because you want IPs, I enjoyed Zone of the Enders. I don't really think I can call that one I enjoyed Zone of the Enders, but I don't think I can rate it that highly. I really don't think I can rate the Zone of the Ender line that highly, to be perfectly honest, even though I enjoyed it, and not from the people that don't like it will just stay away from it thing. I think that one, no, I think that will pull an eyeball so that it'll then go, maybe not type stuff. Also curious as to why Square Enix didn't make it. I didn't think FF15 was bad, but I agree it wasn't their greatest work. 8 out of 10. You give FF15 an 8 out of 10? Do you write for a game review company, Sonic the Otter? Because FF15 is not an 8 out of 10 game unless you only use the 7 to 10 portion of your review scale. No. Sorry. We're allowed to have different taste, but I can't do it. And then you have to remember 14 was so bad on release that they literally had to destroy the game, drop a meteor on it to make a new one. That was years ago at this point. But that's kind of the thing. You go look at their games and what they've had, and it's okay, 10 was good. 14 once it was remade, 14 once it was remade was good. 7 remake was good. Those are some long time gaps. And again, I don't mind the long time gaps, but we did release games in these time gaps that were not these good games. This is not all of what they released. 12, 13, 15. No, thank you. We're going to see more there, and that's just talking the Final Fantasy line. They do have more than that. They do have Dragon Quest stuff, etc. Pokemon suffers from this I'm so invested in the series problem, for sure. For sure. Nobla, to my knowledge, they haven't. But if all of their last stuff was good, it's okay with me if they have 4-year gaps, that sort of thing. In Disney's Nintendo Zelda World Park, you ride a pony around the park. Yep. Maybe it's a typo and it's an 8 out of 100 game. It's not that bad. Bungie was a company that had to bounce back after poor but Disney content. Yeah, you got it. Okay. Are we looking at publishers or studios? Because no publisher is going to bat at 1,000. We're really looking at, what are the games that they can put out there. So we're really more looking at studios. You're going to see some stuff on here like EA where, hey, that's a publisher. I don't really care about that. We're really looking at, hey, can you create your own good games? We're looking at the developers. And yes, even them, I don't expect to bat at 100. If you drop one game in 10, I don't mind. Like, oops, you were trying to push the limit. That's necessary. You messed up. That's a 6 out of 10 game. That's perfectly fine, as long as most of what you're releasing is consistently, not most of what people remember years later, but most of what you're releasing is that, hey, this was a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 game. That's great. That's what we want. And I'm talking real 9 out of 10, real 10 out of 10, real 8 out of 10 type thing. And that's why I probably wouldn't put Nintendo on the list, because Nintendo, of course, is going to be attached to too many things. So Nintendo Studios, absolutely, they do fantastic work, and we put one of them up there, but Nintendo itself is just going to have too many things that are attached to it for you to go, oh yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 type thing. It's going to be, it's going to have published too many that are like, it doesn't really work. Okay. Up to Diablo 3, I'm not sure they released a bad game. I agree, Blop. Diablo 3 they had to redo. You basically caught it right there. They would have been through Diablo up until Diablo 3, everything smelled like roses. But Activision Blizzard isn't there anymore. Okay. That's going to go ahead and do it. I don't want this one to get too long. Definitely do drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. If you'd like to see other types of content, we do quite a bit of that. You can join the Discord to see when we're streaming live, so you can be here for the conversation or see what types of things that we cover. And again, if you think I missed a company, or you want to vote for, hey, no, this is the company, or you want to say, hey, no, Temporal, that was cool, but I really do care more about the financial stuff, or hey, let's talk more about acquisitions, that sort of thing, let me know all that good stuff down there in the comments below. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.